Have you ever looked at your life, the people who love you, the blessings you can count, and the life that from the outside looks whole and beautiful, and still felt quietly like something was missing? And then immediately you felt guilty for even thinking it? If you've ever told yourself, I should be happy, I shouldn't feel this way, or other people have it worse, this episode is for you. Welcome to Divine Angelic Guidance, formerly Angels, Adoption, and Ancestors. Same soul, same community, just a name that better reflects what we're actually doing here. Because Divine Angelic Guidance isn't just about seeing signs or receiving messages from the angels, it's about something deeper. It's spiritual psychology. It's the mindset work, the soul work, the deep inner excavation of who you are beneath the roles, the roots, the stories that you have inherited. It's examining your pain and your triggers and your patterns, and not to fix yourself, but to understand yourself. And the angels, they're not separate from that work. They're woven through it. They guide us through. They help us move through your mind, our body, our physical pain, our suffering, our joys, our celebrations with light, with ease, with divine support. This space honors all paths of connection, healing, and family, grounding ourselves in sacred teachings as we are anchored in ancient roots, ready to rise from the soil of our past. I'm Irene Stupski, here to guide you through stories, insights, and spiritual practices that will help you heal and rediscover your true belonging. Spiritual psychology plus angelic guidance equals the lightened path through the deepest soul work. That's what we explore here. I'm Irene Stupski. I'm a certified spiritual life coach, and this is a space for connection and belonging with the divine, with family in all its forms, and with the parts of you that learn to silence your truth in the name of spirituality. If this conversation resonates with you, take a moment to follow the show, and if someone comes to mind while you're listening, share this episode with them. That's how these conversations reach the right people who need it the most. Let me start with something I've been sitting with for a while now. In the spiritual community, we have all these beautiful tools. We have breath work, journaling, meditation, dancing it out, energy work, cleansing rituals. These aren't just nice things to do. They're genuinely transformative. And I've built my entire practice around them. But there's a shadow side to these tools that we don't talk enough about. And it lives in a very specific pressure. The idea that if you just process it right, breathe it right, journal it right, meditate on it long enough, you should be able to transform any pain, any rejection, any loss into something more, into a lesson, into purpose, into gratitude. And if you can't, well, it makes you feel like you've done something wrong. That you're not spiritual enough, that you're not evolved enough, that not doing the work right. That pressure is real, and it silences just as much as it heals. I know this intimately, not from spirituality alone, but from my own lived experiences. I was adopted, and I want to be clear, I was grateful. Genuinely, deeply grateful. My parents were extraordinary. They raised me with love, stability, and a real sense of belonging. Adoption wasn't a wound in my childhood. It was just my story. And there's a part of the adoption narrative that doesn't really get talked about much. And it caught up with me later in life. When I found my birth mother, something opened that I didn't even know was closed. I was excited, yes, and I was terrified. I saw someone who had my handwriting, my mannerisms, my face for the first time. I could see myself reflected in another human being in a way I never had before. And I felt guilty about it because I loved my parents on one hand. They were my family and are my family. And somehow in being excited about her, I felt like I was cheating on them. Like I was betraying the people who had chosen me, raised me, loved me unconditionally. So I tried to be grateful for meeting her, for the connection, for finally seeing where I came from. But the relationship never truly flourished. It stayed on the surface. Even while we were writing something together, my new book that's coming up, something about belonging and truth, about coming home to yourself. She could only talk about the good. only the grateful. She couldn't go to places where it hurt. And I understood why, because I had done the same thing for years. And then she passed last November, Adoptee Awareness Month of all months. And I was left holding something I didn't know how to name. The pain of a relationship that never became what I had hoped it would. The grief of someone I reached toward but never fully met. The rejection, not said, but felt. That maybe I wasn't safe enough for her truth either. Here's what I realize now. The spiritual community taught me to transform that pain into a lesson, to be grateful for what it taught me, to see it as a gift, to meditate on it, journal through it, breathe it into something higher. And those tools, they're real, they work, but when we use them to bypass honest emotion instead of process it, we're not healing, we're silencing. We're doing the same thing my birth mother did, the same thing I did for years, performing gratitude instead of feeling truth. You're not supposed to journal your way out of grief. You're supposed to journal through it. You're not supposed to meditate away anger. You're supposed to sit with it long enough to hear what it's trying to tell you. And you're definitely not supposed to be grateful for rejection just because you have a spiritual practice. The moment I stopped trying to be spiritually grateful and allowed myself to be emotionally honest, what I felt wasn't shame, it was relief. Because truth, even painful truth, is lighter than the performance of gratitude. If you've been carrying guilt, a quiet guilt, because you can't seem to transform your pain into a lesson, if you've been wondering what's wrong with your spiritual practice because you still hurt, if you're exhausted from trying to stay high vibe in situations that actually broke your heart, I want you to know something. Spiritual practice is not about transcending your humanity. It's about honoring it. The angels don't ask us to choose between joy and sorrow. They hold space for both. They see your pain as sacred, not as something to fix or transform or be grateful for. And just as something that matters, your truth matters, your grief matters, your anger matters, the parts of you that can't seem to find the silver lining, they matter too. You don't have to perform spirituality. You don't have to be high vibe about heartbreak. You don't have to find gratitude for rejection. What you should do is be honest with yourself first. And then, if you're brave enough with the people around you, that's the real spiritual practice, not the tools, the truth. And here's what I want to leave you with today. Gratitude is one of the most powerful tools we have. And like any powerful tool, it matters how we use it. The next time you reach for gratitude, whether it's in your own inner work or how you speak to someone else, or maybe even how you speak to yourself, ask yourself this. Am I using this to deepen truth, or am I using this to avoid it? Am I wielding gratitude in service of wholeness, mine and theirs? Or am I using it to bypass what actually needs to be felt? Because gratitude, when used consciously and intentionally, becomes a force for the greater good. It becomes that bridge to understanding. It becomes a tool for healing, not just for ourselves, but for everyone we touch. That's the real work of spiritual psychology, guided by divine light. So thank you for being here, for listening, for being willing to sit in the uncomfortable places where spirituality and honesty collide. If this episode landed for you, if this episode resonated with you, I'm so glad you found this space. And if something shifted or softened or finally made sense, share it with someone who needs permission to stop performing. Because connection happens through truth. not through positivity. And if you're ready for more of this work, the real, honest, messy work of coming home to yourself, where you feel supported and guided and loved, stay close because we're creating something. This is your invitation to come home to your soul self and create the life your spirit has always dreamed of.